Hello! Today we're going to use these simple ingredients to make a very delicious meal. You're going to need a steamer basket or like a steamer pot setup kind of thing like I'm showing you right here. So it's a pot of boiling water and a steamer basket and a lid. I'm going to use some salmon. I got this from Whole Foods. I'm also going to use this butternut squash that came in my Misfits Market box. They send you like food that's supposed to be ugly. It didn't look ugly to me and it was tasty, so there you go. I'm also going to use this asparagus that has been in my refrigerator for too long, and you'll see why in a few minutes. I'm also going to use this avocado that has been in my refrigerator for too long, and I'm going to make a very simple sauce out of this butter and this garlic. If I feel lazy, I'm going to use this garlic that was already minced. Spoiler alert, I'm going to use this garlic that was already minced because I was feeling a little bit lazy. I'm also going to season everything very simply with just some salt and some pepper, and these two seasonings that I got from Target. So this salt-free garlic and herb blend and this salt-free lemon pepper seasoning blend. So both of those from your local Target. I'm sure your Target has it. I'm also going to use this maple syrup. This is optional. I only use about 1 tablespoon, and I also use about 1 teaspoon of oil, but I do not think it added anything or made a difference, so not really recommended. To start off, I'm going to start with the butternut squash because it takes the longest to cook. You need to peel it, and I am using this very cool peeler that you can click down below in the description box to find a similar one from Amazon. My mom bought me this one, and so I'm just going to find a similar one for you guys and link it down below in the description box. So to peel your butternut squash, you can use a peeler like this. If you're really skilled, you can use a knife. I am not skilled, so I just used a peeler and was very careful not to cut my hand, of course. And then when you start to cut the butternut squash, you can see it's a weird shape. It's not stable, and it's very important just to keep all your fingers, all the parts of your hand out of the way like I'm doing. So I just use like a little bit of a rocking motion and the sharpest knife that I have in order to do this. And I'm cutting it into, I would say, like about 2-inch or so chunks in order to make it go a little bit faster with the steaming and the cooking. So I cut up the entire thing, and then by that time my water was boiling. So I put my butternut squash into the steamer basket on top of the boiling water. And I just spread everything out with the tip of my knife just to get everything spread out and avoid the steam from getting on my fingers. Steam is very hot and will burn like the dickens. So don't get your fingers close to the steam. I put the lid back on that, and then I moved on to my asparagus. I always keep the rubber bands. If you have a lot of electronics like me, keep those rubber bands, and you can use them to tie up your cords and stuff. Next, I'm moving on to my asparagus. So you can see that I'm just holding the stem one by one and snapping them. This one, see, I told you, kind of old. Been in my refrigerator for too long. So I'm eating it because I'm trying not to waste food. If that happens to you, just cut it, like where it looks fresh. But for the rest of them, I just snapped them and I ate the top part. The bottom part can be kind of tough. So that's what they look like after you're all done. And then you can move on. So I'm moving on to my salmon, and I'm going to put the asparagus in the steamer pot here in a minute. But I'm moving on to my salmon, And my salmon, I am just going to season very simply with some salt and some pepper and the garlic herb seasoning. That's what I'm going to use on the salmon. So I'm just seasoning the whole fillet with salt. And I heard a professional chef say to season the sides of your food too. I think I don't remember who I heard say that. I was gonna say maybe Joshua Wiseman. I watch a lot of Joshua Wiseman. Shout out to him. So I'm using the salt-free garlic and herb seasoning on the fish. It looks like a lot, doesn't it? It looks like, girl, where's your fish? You lost it. But since there's just a teeny bit left, I just put it all on the fish. You can see that I accidentally got a lot in the packaging. You know what? That makes it taste better. If you mess up a little bit, makes it taste better. Also, if you don't quite get all your shots in the frame, makes the food taste better too. Okay, I'm moving on to my pepper. This pepper meal is very stingy, but we use what we have, we go on with life. So I went ahead and just put on the pepper, and then I added this oil. So the fish is steamed in the same steamer basket with the rest of the food. Did I forget to say that this is a kind of meal you can make when you don't want to wash a whole lot of dishes? I think I did forget to say that, but the oil does not really crisp up or anything. So don't put oil on your fish if you're gonna season it. It doesn't make that much of a difference. So I checked my butternut squash to see kind of where it was. It wasn't done, which I knew it wouldn't be, but it was starting to get tender. So I went ahead and put my asparagus on top of it. In hindsight, I recommend putting the asparagus in like after or at the same time as the salmon, because the asparagus to me was a little overcooked. I'm gonna make my garlic butter. I'm just using 2 tablespoons of Challenge butter and this minced garlic. If you have cheaper butter, use that. Do not use your expensive Challenge butter like I did to make a very simple little garlic sauce. So you'll also need a tiny little pan or however you want to, melt your butter. So I have that as well. Back to my steamer pot, so you can see that the asparagus has already been in there a little bit too long. It got a little bit too floppy. I like my asparagus a little bit more crisp, but I did eat it all and it was fine. But to make it a little bit more crisp, please cook it less time than I did. All right, so I am putting this piece of parchment paper on top of the vegetables. If you have like one of those really cool like Asian style steamer baskets that they use in like Japanese restaurants, use that instead. It's easier, but I don't have one of those, so I just put a piece of parchment paper in there and my fish, and that was just an easy way to kind of get everything out of it. You can put the fish on top of the vegetables like directly if you want to. Next, going over to my butter, it started to melt, so I just put in my minced garlic and the lemon pepper seasoning and some salt and pepper. And that was my very basic little sauce that I made up. I just let everything melt. And like I mentioned, I used the Lazy Girl garlic, the lemon pepper seasoning, some pepper, and some salt. Moving on to like the last part of this. So this avocado had just been sitting in my refrigerator and we're not wasting food, y'all. So you can see you owe me $10 if this avocado is green when I open it. Let's see if you owe me $10. Boom, yes, it's green. It was so pretty, it was perfect. It was so perfect. Does anyone else get really excited when their avocado is like the perfect level of ripeness? It happens so infrequently, so I'm very excited when it happens, especially on camera. So I just separated out my asparagus from the butternut squash. I just took it out of the steamer basket and dumped it in this red bowl and then separated it out. The fish is still steaming, so that's still in the steamer basket. So for my butternut squash, I am just seasoning it with some butter and some room temperature butter to make it easier to kind of mix all together. And then I have my salt and I had some pepper, and you can see just a little bit. I don't even know if that was even a full tablespoon, but just a little bit of maple syrup really just brings out the sweetness and adds a little bit more flavor to the butternut squash. You can see here that I tasted it and it needed a little bit more seasoning, so I added a little bit more salt and pepper and just mixed it on up, and that's a very simple and easy little side dish and a nice way to have something a teeny bit sweet if you're in the mood for it. Next, I just basically seasoned my very overcooked asparagus, but just with some salt and some pepper. Super simple. I did also add a teeny bit of olive oil to the asparagus. I do feel like it made the asparagus more aesthetically pleasing. As you can see, again, very overcooked, but at the end they're like overcooked but shiny. You see that they're a little shiny, so I think it made it prettier. So time to plate it up. So I have my steamed fish. It was cooked through. It was still very moist. Here I'm trying to figure out how a chef would arrange this food on a plate, but I'm not a chef, so I decided to make lines. Make things vertical, since the asparagus and the fish looked vertical. That makes sense, right? Probably, maybe, not really. So I'm putting my butternut squash in the middle. I thought it was very pretty. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of impressed with my ability to just come up with this. I am not a chef, you guys. This is basic ass cooking. We're doing basic cookery over here. We're not cheferys, okay? So I'm mixing up my garlic and butter, my little sauce, if we can call it that. Let's call it a topping. It's not a sauce, it's a topping. And then I put my cut up avocado on the side where the asparagus was, because it was green and I thought they just went together. And that is how the food ended up. It was delicious. 10 out of 10 recommend. Make sure you subscribe. See you next time.